Hi, do you ever wonder where malware names came from? What's in a name? I mean, they all have such interesting names. Heartbleed, Melissa, Guload, I love you. All these names appear to have come from nowhere. But there is no international standard for naming of malware, though there is for hurricane. If you wondered where Hugo, Katrina, Ian, it comes from the World Meteorological Organization, and they actually have lists of names for the Pacific and Atlantic, and they've retired some names because they were especially dreadful. Names are also there for stars. So the International Astronomical Union is the one that actually names stars, and they have actually a method and a nomenclature. Coronavirus variants are named by the World Health Organization, so you might have heard about beta and alpha and omicron and so on, but no such thing for malware, I'm afraid. Usually, malware is named by the malware researcher, and these fellows work for antivirus endpoint protection type of organizations. Is there a method to the madness? Oh, yes, there is. It sort of depends to some extent on what the functionality of the malware is. So you have things like backdoor or dropper or Trojan, and these are describing the kinds of things or the ways in which they go about stuff. Very often they'll be based on a malware family, simply because malware authors are innovating rapidly and they will release different strains of the same malware. And so if the researcher can identify that there is a commonality, sort of like a last name, if you like, for the family, then it could be based on the malware family rather than just on itself. Sometimes they're named by the malware author. The Janus Syndicate was especially aggressive in promoting Petya and Misha, and they sold it in underground forums to anybody that wanted to buy it. And they were anxious to make sure that the name was something that they controlled. Sometimes it is based on the method in which the malware actually operates. For instance, Heartbleed was named in that way because it bled secret bank information back to the attacker. That information was considered to be the heart of the victim organization. If you like, bleeding the heart. The malware researcher named it that way. The media liked it because it was descriptive. In a word, it said what it was doing, and it was sufficiently scary. I mean, obviously, you don't want your heart bleeding, and so it promoted attention. Some interesting names that have occurred over the years. For instance, many years ago, there was I Love You that sort of kicked it all off. And it was named in this fashion because of the attachment that had malicious code. The attachment, and this is back in the days when we were quite naive about these things, but it said love letter for you.txt. What made it suspicious is that it arrived in a business context as email from a business contact, which is typically you don't get these kinds of attachments, but it was a simple virus for a much simpler time. You had Coopface, and it was called like this because that's an anagram of Facebook, and it actually spread within Facebook. You had Melissa, and this was named by the author for a stripper that he knew in Florida by that name. Go figure. There was Michelangelo, and it was called this because it was designed to activate only on Michelangelo's birthday, which happens to be March 6th. There was CIH, and it was simple. It was the initials of the developer, Channing Hao. And so that's why that malware was called like that. So there have been attempts, to be honest, to tame the mess. If malware is named by the researcher and there are different researchers, each with their own view of life, then there is no standard. So there's been an attempt in 1991, the Caro Naming Convention tried to come up with a scheme that you see there. It's obsolete now, never really got adopted much. In the meantime, of course, the malware landscape has changed meaningfully. Means of detection have changed, and so it's not clear that that naming convention has any value today. Every antivirus vendor has their own convention. It's usually platform, malware type, family, and then some additional information that might be either prepended in advance of or appended, to the end of the name. It's quirky. For instance, even the word virus, most of the AVs will defend you against malware, and malware is much more than virus. But in the mind of the public, the word virus has stuck and is often used interchangeably with malware. I mean, you could say that it's based on functionality, but Trojan is really, frankly, the Trojan horse, where they had the hollow horse go in and it had soldiers inside. if you remember. So Trojan is really a attack vector whereby something that's innocuous is used to have something that's harmful inside. So it's not really consistent in that matter. If you're interested in details about this, here's a reference for you, The Art of Computer Virus Research and Defense by Peter Joe. This is available from Addison Wesley. I'll leave you with one last thing. By convention, names are not meant to be pornographic or invoke foul language. One name that's skated really close to the edge is configure. It was meant to be a variation of configure, and ficker, or Ficker, is a German variant of the F word that I leave to your imagination. Who says cybersecurity can't be fun?